I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on the Spotlight Network, we're tackling one of the biggest challenges in business. What is it? Come on, guess. Working with family. The name of the book we're exploring today is called Help, I've Got Family in the Business. It's written by author and succession planning expert Hugh B. Roberts. In the book, he shares real-life stories and proven strategies to help business owners navigate family dynamics while securing their legacy. Whether you're struggling with succession planning, workplace conflicts, or future transitions, this book provides the solutions you need for business succession, business success, and family harmony. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put him in the spotlight today, and we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his amazing book. The links are below this interview. And be sure to download the Spotlight Network TV app streaming on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV. Hugh, thanks so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
It's good to be here, Logan. Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure. I guess you have to look no further than the hit HBO show Succession to know that there can be problems in family businesses. Tell us a little bit about your inspiration to write this book.
Well, I've had the privilege for over 40 years of working with family-owned businesses all over the country. And the dream they all have is that someday I can continue my business through my kids. Mm-hmm. And that legacy, that continuation of their life's work is a really big deal to them. It's a dream they've had all their lives. And unfortunately, they get to a certain point, and in so many situations, that dream, well, the balloon pops and it becomes a nightmare. Yeah. And they're wondering, what do I do? And is this possible? And where do I go from there? And so through my book, I've tried to give people hope and answers. They're not the first people to go through this. They're not alone. People have gone through it. There is a way to see their way to the end that they're hoping to achieve.
Absolutely. It is often said the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So let me ask you this. Why do dreams become nightmares for owners of family businesses sometimes?
Well, in my book, I point out that there's at least 10 reasons, probably more, that cause the dream to turn into a nightmare. So I have just a couple of examples. You have family dynamics take over, et cetera. And so you'll have a conversation like this, and my children won't work as hard as I do. Well, Dad, that's all you did. We never saw you. You know, we're not about to do that. I mean, I want work-life balance in my family. So we're not doing that. And then I think of this 180-year-old who's always there on Saturdays. That's just who he is. That's what he does. And he can't understand. Why won't my kids do that? It just seems crazy. Mm-hmm. And then I think of another conversation where the child says, Dad, you had it easy. Easy, you little jerk. What are you talking about easy? I mean, I grew up with an alcoholic father who died when I was 12. I grew up on the wrong side of the tracks. I had to scrape for everything I got. I worked. What are you talking about easy? And the kid says, well, Dad, you had it easy because you started at the bottom. Every single thing you did was a success. My siblings and I, we've got to start at the top. And she's right. She's right. That's a huge challenge that an awful lot of kids cannot overcome. I happen to have the privilege of sitting on an airplane with Dr. J, Julius Erving, one of the greatest basketball players that's ever lived. You know, the Michael Jordan of his era, the LeBron James, the Kobe Bryant. He was it. And I said to him, must be tough being your kid. And he goes, what do you mean? I mean, like, I'm a good guy. And I said, there's only one Dr. J. You set a really, really high benchmark for your kids to follow. And that's the exact same thing that the children of successful family business owners have. Their parents are the titans of industry. They are the lords of their universe. They're the leaders of their community. And for most kids, as they look at that, they go, wow, how do I face Mount Everest and try and, be like that?
Yeah, it is tough. You think of Frank Sinatra Jr., he had a good career, a good singer, nice looking guy, but he's not Frank Sinatra. He set the bar very high. The same thing's true with Frank Capra. He was a great director. His son was a great director, but overshadowed again by the father. So sometimes casting a big shadow can be a big problem. In your book, you talk about 10 time bombs that can negatively impact family businesses. Which, in your opinion, is the most dangerous?
Well, I think the one that's hardest for us to deal with and address with success is wrapped up in the whole word entitlement. When you've made it too easy for your kids, when you've done things to grease the skids for them in a way that takes away their ability to really get there on their own, you've really cut their legs out from underneath them, and their ability to be successful becomes really difficult. And I often say you can give your child a job, you can give them a paycheck, you can give them a title, but you cannot give them respect. They have to earn that on their own. And unless they earn respect, nobody's sticking around when you're gone. All the good people are going to leave. So I look at and say basically the problem is almost always mom or dad or both.
Hmm.
Where they basically, in an effort to quote help my kid, they do just the opposite. So they pay them too much, they promote them too quickly, they don't hold them accountable. They basically excuse bad behavior, all the kinds of things they wouldn't do with anybody else. And this is all because so often they're afraid of upsetting the family. Well, that becomes a disaster. One particular client I'm thinking of now, he had a great business. They were successful. They had great continuity, year after year after year, consistent profits, et cetera. And then all of a sudden, in came the son. And dad does all the things wrong that we just talked about. And he promotes too quickly, and he gives his son authority way in excess of his ability, et cetera. And the next thing you know, the kid is driving everybody crazy.
Hmm.
It's not very long until the person who's most responsible for all the success of the business says, I've had enough of this, I'm leaving, goes down the road, starts working with the competitor. Doesn't take long before he's recruited away all the real key management, and away the whole thing goes downhill. So whatever you have there, you've got dad's family dynamics, unwillingness to deal with his kid, that basically says the successor is never going to be ready, which then says that the management team can't work with him and has had enough and is leaving. Profits go in the toilet and succession's impossible.
Yeah. Amazing. And you see it time and time again. My own son is a broadcaster. I mentor him and I'll give him advice, and he'll kind of half listen. But if he hears it from his boss, because he doesn't work for me, he makes the changes needed to further his career. So sometimes it's
I
hard to
often
hear it.
say I do a great job of talking to somebody else's kid.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, kids don't want to hear it from dad. They want to hear it from somebody else, and it has much more impact. Why do you think it is so difficult to communicate with our children, and how does it impact business?
Well, first of all, we know this in our head that we're different, that our kids are different than us. In most cases, there's a lot of differences, et cetera. But then we go, but I don't understand. Why doesn't he understand what I said? I mean, I was
Mm,
perfectly clear about it. I was communicating, and I mean, it's ridiculous. I don't get it. So a perfect example of that, there was this one family we've worked with now for over 30 years. And the father was the consummate salesman. He was out there, he's engaging with the people, he was real involved with the management, he was involved with the customers, he was a people guy. And along comes his son. He brings his son into the business, and his son is phenomenally well educated. He's got a great financial background, et cetera, but he's an introvert. He's entirely
mm,
different than his dad. And they built this giant complex, et cetera. And on purpose, the son made sure that the administrative offices, et cetera, were about 100 yards behind the main building. And his office was upstairs. It was at the back of the building, and the door was closed most of the time. So what's he
mm,
telling you? I'm not a people guy. And
yeah,
that drove daddy crazy. How in the world could you be successful if you're not out there engaged with the people? Well, the truth was the son was a much better businessman than his
yeah.
dad. And over his lifetime, while dad was still alive, this son took the business to 10 times the size it had been under his dad. But dad still went to his grave, not sure his son was going to make it because he didn't do it his way. Well, just to show you, God has a sense of humor, along comes next generation. And you could probably guess who the grandchild is like, grandpa. And
That's
so
what I
this whole
figured.
cycle of struggling with the relationship and the communication challenges, continued.
Amazing. And now you've got a gregarious grandson running the show, more like grandpa style. I think that's a great story. And it illustrates that managerial differences are just that. Doesn't mean one's the right way, one's the wrong way necessarily, although it
Exactly.
might feel like that to somebody who's closely involved, like a father. It's not always father and son or mother and daughter or whatever combination of parent and child. Sometimes it's sibling partnerships. Do they work? Do they not work? Tell us a little bit about those.
Great question. The truth is, sibling partnerships can be phenomenal or they can be a disaster. The most important question that we always ask is, would your sibling choose you if you weren't related? In other words, the only person that you can affect and change is you, and are you the person that your sibling's going to want? And partnerships to be effective, whether they are personal partnerships like in a marriage or whether or not they are business partnerships, demand that both people have chosen each other. You chose your spouse, she chose you. It continues to work because of that. I have business partners who are not related to me, and I've chosen them and they choose me, and it works. But unfortunately, in a family business, mom and dad say, here's your partners. Good luck. Make it work. Okay. And sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. But one thing is got to be is that both of them have to play in the major leagues. You can't have one child play in the major leagues and the other in the little leagues and then hope it's going to work. So, we have a lot of situations there where one of the family members is just not putting out the effort, et cetera, and then you're trying to make that work, and it's a disaster. So I think of one example of two brothers where they're about 10 years apart in age. The older brother had been in the business considerably longer when his younger brother came along, and they could see lots of reasons why they could work together, but they could also see where their complementary skill sets could cause a lot of clash. So they got a hold of me. We began to work on, okay, what do we expect of each other? Let's make that clear. And then one of the things they committed to was weekly meetings where they would turn off their cell phones. They would really focus on each other. They would work through issues, et cetera. And now they're turning their complementary skill sets to the advantage of their partnership and to the advantage of the business. One other one was two older guys that had been together, two brothers. They'd been together for 35, 40 years, and two incredibly scary individuals, just physically. I mean, these guys would get in a room and they'd go at it with each other, and you'd just start looking for a rug to hide under. And I said to one of them, I said, what is it about your relationship that you seem to have been able to make it work, but there's times when I think you're going to kill each other? And he said, well, years ago, we decided that when we make a decision, we can fight over it all we want to behind closed doors. But once we make that decision, it's our decision. We're committed to it. And if it works, great, we celebrate. If it doesn't work, we basically go figure it out and fix it ourselves. But we never say, I told you so. Those kind of dynamics will make a sibling partnership work. But you got to both be committed to the whole thing.
It's almost like a marriage. If you're
Oh,
telling your wife or she's telling you, I told you so all the time, you're going to just get a head of steam and not much done. What happens when you're Don Corleone and one son is Michael and the other son is Fredo, and you want to run a successful business? What do
I
you
love
do when you
the
have one child who's capable and one who's less capable?
I love the example. Well, first of all, you can't run a family like a business, and you can't run a business like a family. Yet an awful lot of people try and do that. You see, family is supposed to be about unconditional love and acceptance. I love you just because of who you are. And
Mhm.
business is, what have you done for me lately?
Yeah.
It's conditional performance. Okay. And so in that kind of situation, you love them both. Okay. And you want the best for them, and you want to do everything you can to maximize their own effectiveness, et cetera. But we got to recognize that, if they're not as talented, or if they have chosen to not get as prepared, or they haven't gotten educated, or they don't have the work ethic, or they don't have the commitment, et cetera, then you can't hope to put them together in an equal partnership and make it work. That's just not fair. And fair is not equal, and equal is not fair. So if you're trying to do that, then the Fredo in that situation is being carried, okay, by his brother. And
Exactly.
sooner or later, that just doesn't work. So mom and dad have to face that fact and then try and make it work for both of them, bringing out the best in them, but recognizing you've got to protect the family business because it's the golden goose that's going to provide for everybody.
Absolutely. If you have to, put Fredo on that rowboat, send him out on the water, and let nature
Uh-oh.
take its course, right?
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh, exactly. Without a doubt. Before we leave you today, Hugh, if you could give business owners one piece of advice for long-term success, what would it be?
Well, I define success as twofold. It's not just business success, it's business success and family harmony. And that's a tough thing to pull off. But to me, unless you pull off both, it's not what I would call success. And as I often say, you can always make more money, but you cannot always repair relationships. So as I've looked at families that have done a great job on both ends, with family and with business, I think there's 5 things that they do consistently. First of all, the family members that are involved in the business have all earned respect. Nobody's carrying anybody. There are no Fredos in that situation. There's a commitment to a family vision. Okay. They know where they're going. They're all committed to the same vision. They're pulling their oars in the same direction. One guy said, I know we can get through this challenging time because we all are committed to grandpa's vision and we're going to carry it out and we're going to get there. Then there's that ability to resolve conflicts. A lot of people think that conflict should be totally avoided. Not true at all. Uh, really good relationships demand the ability to work through conflict. And if you don't, all you've got is artificial harmony. Artificial harmony doesn't work for very long. Finally, there's clarity regarding the expectations. You've written them down. You've determined exactly what we could expect from each other on a very granular level. And ultimately, they've spent time with each other on a regular basis, a commitment to working through business issues together. They understand that without that, you can't get there. And so if you want to have a succession success story where the family legacy continues, where there's family harmony and there's business success, you've got to commit time to each other. You've got to be on the same level, earning respect. You've got to be willing to work through conflict, and you've got to have a vision that you're carrying out. And to the extent you do that, then hopefully you won't be the succession story on TV. You'll be the success story that you want.
Absolutely. It's clear to see why you're the best in the business, Hugh. And the lessons that you teach in this book and that you've taught us right now, I think are applicable to not only family businesses, but to businesses in general as well. Because after a while, it all kind of feels like family, and you don't want it to be a bad marriage or a bad match. You wanted something made in heaven, not in Hades. The name of the book is Help, I've Got Family in the Business. It's written by author and succession planning expert Hugh B. Roberts. In the book, Hugh shares real-life stories and proven strategies to help business owners navigate family dynamics while securing their legacy. Whether you're struggling with planning succession, workplace conflicts, or future transitions, this book provides the solutions you need for business success and family harmony. Hugh, thank you so much for joining me here today on Spotlight.
Thank you, Logan. Appreciate it.
Such a pleasure talking to you, sir. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time until next time on Spotlight.